It's time for part 2 of my 2K Q&A video series. Let's dive into more of your questions. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life. And today I am back to answer more of your questions for my 2K Q&A video series. I am here with part 2 of this 3-part series. And as a reminder, I have divided all of your questions into 6 different categories. Those categories are early reading life questions, general reading questions, general book questions, genre-specific book questions, personal questions, and booktube related questions. I will answer a few more questions from each of those categories in today's video, and we have a lot to get through, so let's get going. We will start with our first category of questions, which are early reading life questions. And the first question for today is, I'd love to know how your reading life started. Were you a bookworm as a little girl, or when did you really start reading? Were you always a big reader? Well, I was definitely always a reader. I think there's a picture of me from, I was definitely under age 3, and I am asleep and I have a picture book between my arms. I'm laying on my side. There's a picture of me in bed like that. So definitely always a reader. But I really think I didn't hit my big reader phase until I was about age 8 or 9, like around the 2nd grade. And yes, so that was when my reading life really took off. I really became a voracious reader, and my mom had a lot of trouble keeping up with me and taking me to the library enough to satisfy my reading needs. But yes, that's when it started, and I haven't looked back. The next question is, when did you become an avid reader, and how much did your teachers, parents play into that? Who has influenced you most on your reading journey, and how did they do that? Did you have a teacher or individual inspire your love for reading? Did it come as a child or as an adult? Who do you attribute your love for reading the book genres that you currently read today? Well, by far and away, my mom is my biggest influencer when it comes to my reading life. My mom has always been a big reader. We always had books at home. She had bookcases of books. My brother and I had bookcases of our own books in our own rooms. She was always taking us to the library. She was always gifting us books for birthdays, for Christmas. So books were just a big part of my growing up experience. And I have my mom to thank for most of that. And I was trying to think if there was a specific teacher or somebody who, also influenced my reading, and nothing specific comes to mind. I definitely remember reading books both in school and for school that I really loved, but I'm not sure that there was a specific teacher. But by far and away, my mom, my biggest influence. She definitely has influenced the genres that I enjoy reading, mysteries in particular. She got me into Agatha Christie. She got me into Mary Stewart. She introduced me to Laurie Colwin. So many of my favorite books and authors are a direct result of books my mom has given to me, or things she was reading that she loved and passed along to me, or just books she told me about, or authors she mentioned, like, hey, you might like this. Yes, thanks, Mom. Thanks for all the books. And that's it for that category. So let's move on to general reading questions. The first question in the general reading category is, I don't recall you ever mentioning ebooks. So my question is, do you have a Kindle? And if so, do you read much on it? The answer is yes, I have a Kindle. And no, I don't read that much on it. I do read ebooks on occasion, but I don't gravitate towards picking up my Kindle as my first go-to when I want to start a new book. I definitely want to pick a physical book off of my shelf, but ebooks do come in handy. I have just found that I don't read on a screen the same way that I read on, from a physical book. I don't take in information in the same way, and so I don't find that I retain books that I've read on the ebook, on the e-reader as much as physical books, And that's saying something because I have a hard time remembering books when I read them in physical format because I read a lot and I read very quickly. And I've definitely discovered that there are certain types of books that are better for me on the Kindle than not. So nothing super heavy, no, classics that really need a lot of my concentration. I prefer things that are relatively light, page turners, mysteries, light fiction, occasionally a nonfiction if it's something that's fairly easy to read. So yes, but I don't gravitate towards this. In fact, I just noticed it needs to be charged. But if you were interested in seeing what books I have on my Kindle, I'd be happy to do a video about that. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. So the questions are, my question is, do you keep a book journal? And if so, would you be willing to share it? And how do you keep track of your reading? And have you done it differently in the past? Yes, I keep a book journal as of right now. And my current book journal looks like this. This is an Erin Condren notebook, and I just picked this toile cover, which I really liked. I am planning to do a separate video walkthrough of my book journal, so stay tuned for that. But I thought I would share a little bit of the first book journal that I started, which is nothing. I kept the bare minimum. I never kept a book journal until I started this one in 2006. I didn't keep track of my books when I was a kid or a teenager, and I really wish I had, and I'm not sure why I didn't. I don't know. Thought never crossed my mind, obviously, but it would be so great to have a record of like everything I'd read. Oh well. But I do have one since 2006. So this book journal took me from 2006 to 2016 because the only things that I recorded in it, when I very first started in 2006, it looks like all I wrote was the title and the author. And then a little ways down, I started recording the date I finished the book. And that's really all I did for this book journal. I went back, I had starred some of the books that were favorites, and I went back a few years ago and kind of highlighted them so they stood out. I think I was keeping track of some of my favorite books or doing some sort of list or something. Anyway, as I kind of went along, like I also went back, made some other notes, like if I read if it was a nonfiction book, I think I noted if it was a graphic novel, so a few different things. Anyway, but like I said, I will do a dedicated video to sharing my book journal journey. I do also use Goodreads, and I'm pretty diligent about tracking my reading in there. I always put in there what I'm currently reading and mark it off when I'm finished and give it a star rating. And I do try to write a review. Sometimes I get behind in my reviews, but I do try to catch up periodically so that I can at least leave a few thoughts about each book so that at least when I go back and look at it, I know what I thought of it. And if you would like to be friends or follow me on Goodreads, the link to my Goodreads account is in the description box below. Okay, the next question is, how do you mark your page when reading physical books? Do you use formal bookmarks or something else? Do you have a favorite bookmark? Well, I love a cute bookmark. I am 100% on board with a cute bookmark, and I have a bookmark collection, and I actually shared it in one of my getting to know me videos, my favorite bookish things. I will link that in the description box if you want to check that video out. You can see a little bit more of my bookmark collection, excuse me. But I thought I would share a few of my favorite bookmarks today. So one of my favorite bookmarks was gifted to me by my very best friend. She gave this to me in 2004. It says, "Time changes many things, but not the joy your friendship brings." And it's just this lovely, sweet bookmark, this little rocking chair and the little garden scene. So I use this one quite frequently, and the tassel on it has actually held up pretty well. A lot of my tassel bookmarks have fallen apart, like the tassel has unraveled, but this one's holding strong so far. The next bookmark was actually gifted by another friend who lived in Hawaii for a while, and she gave me this lovely kind of like teak surfboard looking Hawaii bookmark with this cute little tassel on it. Yes, so I do love this one, especially like to use this one in the summertime when I'm reading summer books. And I took it with me when I went to Hawaii last year. And then when I'm reading a good mystery, because another thing about me is I do like to match my bookmarks to my book. And I don't really know how to explain that other than like, you know, I just get a vibe from a certain bookmark and that's the bookmark that has to go in the book I'm reading. I don't know, it's just one of my quirks. But I like to use this one when I'm reading mysteries, this very like Nancy Drew looking bookmark. My mom gave this to me a couple of years ago. I love that one. So fun. On the back, there's like a moon. And then the last 3 bookmarks I'm going to show you were made by my dad. He was an artist and he passed away late last year. And I have lots and lots of his bookmarks. We have them throughout our house. He used to gift bookmarks to our entire extended family at Christmas time. And so I have a huge collection of them, but these are just a few of the different designs that he made over the years. This is a Christmas one. I always use this when I read Christmas books. So yes, very special to me. And I do love a good bookmark. I will, however, use whatever's at hand if I don't have a bookmark. So, you know, a receipt, a Post-it note. I've been known to stick my phone in my book if I just quickly need to mark my place. I will fold down the corners. I know that is a controversial statement, but I do that sometimes. Not as much as I used to. I used to be an avid corner folder page marker, but as I have collected nicer editions of books, I am less likely to fold down the corners of the pages. But my go-to is definitely a pretty bookmark. Next question is, as a library user who sometimes gets carried away, I'm curious, how many books have you checked out at one time at the library? Honestly, I have no idea. But I would probably say, if we're just talking about for myself personally, I mean, my max would maybe be like 20 or 30 books at one time. And that's probably just because all of my holds came in at the same time and that was unexpected or I wasn't paying attention. You know, or I've like checked out a few books and then went and returned some and then checked out more books. And so then I end up with like this big pile of books, even if I didn't get them all in one stop at the library, but cumulatively at my house, I have, you know, maybe 20 or 30 books, but I haven't done that in a long time. I would say on average, I check out anywhere from like 2 to 10 books. That's probably more my speed most of the time, but use your library. Libraries are fantastic. I love my library. Let us move on to general book questions. This next question was so good. I really had to think about this one. It is, what is your favorite first line and last line of a book? First line wasn't as hard, but last line, I really had to think about that one. So I'm going to tell you the quote, and then I'll give you a few seconds, or you can pause the video, see if you can come up with what book it's from, and then I'll show you the book. So my favorite first line is, I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. I mean, come on, what better first line is there than that? All right, do you know what book that's from? It's from I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Great first line of a book. I mean, certainly there are other classic first lines. You can think of things like A Tale of Two Cities or Anna Karenina or Pride and Prejudice, but I just love this one. It's so whimsical and I don't know, it just captures my heart. And then for favorite last line of a book, this one's going to be more obscure, but maybe if you've read this book, you'll get it. And the last line is, they raised their glasses, and by the light of the candles, they drank to a truly wonderful life. Do you know what it is? If you're still thinking, pause the video, because I'm going to show you right now. It's from my favorite book, Happy All the Time by Laurie Colwin. I think that's a great last line of a book. So lovely, like toasting to a truly wonderful life. Can you see why I love her? Great last line. The next question is, has there been a book that you initially didn't like, but that you reread later in life and really enjoyed? And I actually really had to think kind of long and hard about that, because I think books I read when I was young and didn't like, I haven't come back to really. But then I did think about one book that, I mean, I liked it okay as a kid, but it didn't really grab me, and I didn't continue on and read the rest of the series. And that book was Little House in the Big Woods by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I had a copy of this book when I was a kid. I didn't have any of the other books in the series, just that one. And I read it, and I don't know, it just didn't grab me at the time. Even though I loved the Little House TV series, that book for some reason didn't entice me to read anymore. But I have since reread it. Just this year, I am reading through the Little House books, as I've mentioned before, and I really loved this, and I'm enjoying this series so much. And I'm sad that childhood me did not get to enjoy this series, but adult me is loving it. The next question in this category is, what book on your shelves has the oldest copyright date, and is it a favorite? I decided just to kind of look at the books I've read, since the second half of the question is it a favorite? And if I haven't read it, then I can't know. So I might have books that are older than this book. And there is one caveat to this, but the book that has the oldest actually publication date, because I don't believe copyright was in existence when this book was published, and that is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, which is absolutely a favorite. Right, as of right now, I think it's my favorite Jane Austen. I go back and forth, but love this one. And it was published in 1811, I believe. So oldest book I've read on my shelves, unless you want to count Shakespeare or Chaucer. I have both of those on my shelves from college classes that I took. So those are definitely on the shelf. And I mean, I do love Shakespeare. And I had a fantastic Chaucer professor who made Chaucer so accessible, and I loved that class. So Chaucer's not an easy read, but it was fantastic. So those are some of my oldest copyright or publication date books. The next question is, have you ever been gifted a book, the memory of which has stayed with you for years? So many books, yes. 100%. I have lots of books that have been gifted to me, and I can remember who gave them to me and when and why and all of that. Definitely a lot of the books came from my mom. She's a wonderful book gift giver, especially to me. But one that really stands out to me is this very chunky book, which is Home Comforts by Cheryl Mendelson. And she gave this to me when I got married, and she inscribed it. And it says, "Dear Jen, this is a great book and one I wish had been available to me when I was starting out keeping a house. I hope you will find it a handy reference. Happy homemaking. Love, Mom." So if you know someone who is getting started or buying a home for the first time or moving out on their own or wanting to keep house, and I mean, I know we have so much information at our fingertips on the internet, but this book is such a lovely resource. And who doesn't want to like dive into the pages of a book to like figure out just all the things about keeping a home. So, you know, whether you're getting married or you're just starting out on your own, I think this is a fabulous book to have. And it's so beautiful to look at too. So yes, love this one. I still refer to it to this day, and it will always have a special place on my shelf. The next question is, what's your most valuable book on your nightstand, or a book that brings you joy? Well, to be honest, I am not really sure that I have any books that are of any particular value, like to the world at large. I don't have any, I haven't collected any books that are, you know, vintage or antique books or anything like antiquarian books, anything like that. Did I say antique? I meant antiquarian. So I don't know. That's not something I'm really looking for when I'm buying a book. you know, I buy books to read them. So not just because they're of value to someone, but I have many books that I would just be devastated if I lost them or they were destroyed in some way. And they definitely bring me joy. And a couple of those are actually Susan Branch's books. This is a fine romance. My mom gifted this to me in 2017, and then 2 years ago, she and I went to a book signing when Susan Branch was here near us, and she signed my book. And it says, "To Jennifer, dreams really do come true, Susan Branch." And then she also signed, she was here for a book signing for this book, which is Distilled Genius, which is a collection of her favorite life-changing quotations. And she signed this one as well. So, "To Jennifer with love, Susan Branch." So these two books definitely hold special value to me in my heart on my shelves. Whether they hold value to anyone else, I don't know. And I don't really care that much if a book is valuable out in the world. Again, I collect books because I love them and I want to have them and enjoy them and look at them and reread them, all that good stuff. This next question is really fun. It is, if you could live in any fictional small town, where would you live and who would you hope to be your next door neighbor? Okay, let's dig into this. So my choice of location isn't necessarily a small town, but I would like to live somewhere in a small village in Rosamond Pilcher's Cornwall. So that's where I want to live. As for my next door neighbor, I figured I could have two neighbors, so one on each side. So on one side, I would like to have Carolyn Daring from Victoria Cottage by D.E. Stevenson. And on the other side, I'd like to have Mrs. Polifax from The Amazing Mrs. Polifax by Dorothy Gilman. So this will be my neighborhood. Me and these two lovely ladies. So yes, fictional place, Cornwall. Fictional neighbors, Carolyn and Mrs. Polifax. So fun. Let's move on to the next category of questions, which are genre-specific book questions. The next question is very specific and it's kind of a toughie. So it is, my daughter, who is quite a reader, is getting married. Congratulations to your daughter, first of all. She and her fiance are having a vintage book-inspired wedding. Do you have any classic books that you recommend that center around weddings? This is a tough question because sometimes books that center around weddings, like the wedding itself may not be a super happy event, and that's why it's the central, setting for the book. So I didn't feel like those were necessarily the right types of books to recommend. And then as I was thinking about it, most books are either like the courtship leading up to the marriage and the marriage is the conclusion of the book, or the marriage has happened before the book has started and we're looking at the marriage throughout the book. So it was really a struggle for me to think of books that contain weddings that are maybe sort of vintagey. So I came up with two possibilities. The first is Betsy's Wedding by Maud Hart Lovelace. That one definitely centers around a wedding and it's lovely. I haven't read it in a really, really long time, so I don't remember all the specifics of it. And I don't have a copy of it anymore. I don't know that I ever did. I think I just checked it out from the library, but that one I think would be lovely. And the second book that has a wedding in it that's kind of fun, kind of quirky, and that is Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. And there is a wedding at the end of this book and it's very fun. I really love the ending of this, and I thought the wedding and the description of the wedding and setting up for it and everything was just wonderful. So I would definitely recommend this one as well. But if anyone else has any wedding-centered books that are maybe a little bit vintagey and wants to recommend them in the comments, that would be fantastic. So help one of our fellow viewers out and let us know what your favorite books that feature weddings are. I think positive weddings. We don't want a wedding where, it goes nuts. The next question is, I read very eclectically, and the one genre I dip into occasionally that I don't think I've ever seen you review is horror. Do you ever go there? For me, I love haunted houses, but if it's too gruesome, I DNF. So I have read horror in the past. In my teens and 20s, I definitely went through some phases where I read horror books, you know, Stephen King and all that jazz. I don't read horror books like that anymore. I used to read quite a few thrillers, and even those I've really cut back on. I've just found that I don't enjoy them as much as I used to. I will dip into them occasionally, but they need to be not graphic and not include any harm to children or animals, because that's a hard no for me. But what I do like ghost stories, and I do like books that are a little bit creepy or gothic, or if there's something a little maybe paranormal going on, that's okay too. So that is something that I'm really drawn to. And I actually have two books, which I'm hoping to get to in the fall. And the first is The Ghost Stories of Edith Wharton. So that is one that I am looking forward to diving into. And then this other book, I've had this on my shelf for so long. And that is Among the Shadows by L.M. Montgomery. And these are tales from the darker side. It says 19 newly discovered stories. But yeah, so the L.M. Montgomery of Anne of Green Gables fame. Looks like this was published in 1990. And yes, so I'm curious to see what L.M. Montgomery's take on the darker side is. But I'm hoping to get to both of these maybe in October. The next question is, which mystery authors are your favorites, and are you able to rank them? So I did my best. I think I would consider these my top 10 favorite mystery authors. Oh, and then, you know, as I start thinking about it, I feel like I've missed a few. Well, okay. We're just going to go with the 10 that I thought of off the top of my head when I was trying to put this list together. So I think we'll start with number 10 and work our way up to my number 1 spot. But at the number 10 spot, I have Dervla McTiernan, and I have really enjoyed her mysteries, especially she has a series. It's either 3 or 4 books, I believe. Cormac Riley, I think that's her main character. Anyway, they're set in Ireland. Fantastic. Love them. At number 9, I'm going to put Kate Atkinson. I really do enjoy her Jackson Brodie mystery series, and I mentioned that I just heard that there's going to be a new one coming out, and I'm very excited. Then at number 8, I'm going to put Jane Harper. I really did love The Dry when it came out, and I really have loved all of her books. They've been fantastic. So, and I really think she uses the weather and the elements of Australia to great advantage in her books. And then next, I am going to put at number 7, Anne Cleeves. I've really enjoyed the Matthew Venn mystery series. I've read a couple Shetland mysteries. I've read, I think, the first Vera, but really love the Matthew Venn series. I enjoyed the others as well, but then I got sucked into the TV shows, and so I really haven't read the books, though maybe at some point I will go back and read those books, but Matthew Venn I really have enjoyed. And then at number 6, I'm going to put Sarah Stewart Taylor. Her Maggie Darcy mystery series is another favorite of mine, and I've really loved, I think there's 6 books in this series now, 5 or 6 books, and every one of them has been fantastic. The books go back and forth between the US and Ireland, and I just found that to be an enjoyable aspect of the series that's different than some other series I've read. And then at number 5, I'm going to put Ellie Griffiths because I adore Ruth Galloway, as I've mentioned, and I'm loving working my way through that series. And at number 4 has to be Deborah Crombie. I've read all of the books in the Duncan and Gemma series, and it is fabulous. In fact, I reread the first book in the series, A Share in Death, last year, and I'm considering maybe one of these years doing just a read through of the entire series over again, because I think it would be fun to kind of read them consecutively, because the story, the relationships of the characters develops over time, and so I think that would be fun to read them, you know, kind of in close consecutiveness. Close consecutiveness? You know what I mean. And then at number 3, I'm going to put T.E. Kinsey. I love the Lady Hardcastle mysteries, as I've mentioned many, many times. They're absolutely fantastic on audio. I cannot recommend them enough. Elizabeth Nolden does a fantastic job of narrating and giving voices to both Lady Hardcastle and to her lady's maid Florence. And if you haven't read that yet, definitely check it out. And then at number 2 has to be Louise Penny. I love the Inspector Gamache, Three Pines mystery series. I have been reading them since Still Life came out in paperback, I believe, was when I read it for the first time. So I have been reading them for many, many, many years, and I will keep continuing to read them until she stops writing them. And The Gray Wolf, I believe, is the book that's coming out this fall, and very excited. And last but not least, the number 1 spot, can you guess who it is? Has to be Agatha Christie, of course. She is the queen for a reason, and I adore her, and she is a big reason why I love mysteries the way I do. She's the best. So she's got to have the number 1 spot. And then the last question in this category is, what category of nonfiction are you most likely to read? Definitely, I am most likely to read books about books. I love books about books. Memoirs or biographies. I also like, and this is kind of a weird, I'm not quite sure how to explain this, but I love books of lists of things. So let me show you some examples of all of these types of books. All right, I have 2 examples for sort of each of the nonfiction book categories that I enjoy reading, and the first being books about books. So one book about books that I really love is Book Lust by Nancy Pearl. There's also more Book Lust. I think there's a teen one. There might be one for kids too. Anyway, she has a few of these. But she has all these different categories like cat crazy. And then she'll talk about books that have something to do with cats. And I have marked in there, I put little asterisks next to the books that sounded good to me and that I wanted to look up. And I have gone through this book, I can't even tell you how many times, just looking at the different lists of books and different categories and just seeing what kind of jumps out at me. So also, if you're in a book slump, reading slump, this might be a book to check out. So highly recommend. And then another book about books that is just lovely is Dear Reader by Kathy Rensenbrink. And this is the comfort and joy of books. Who doesn't want to read about the comfort and joy of books? Plus, this book is so just beautiful. So yes, I added quite a few books to my TBR after I read this, and I really loved it. And actually, I'm probably due to reread it. I might do that this winter. And then for memoirs, I don't really have any biographies on my shelf necessarily, so I just picked 2 memoirs that I've really loved. The first one is Summer at Tiffany by Marjorie Hart, and this is about Marjorie and her friends' experience kind of after college. They decide to go to New York and get jobs, and they get jobs as runners at Tiffany's, and it's just kind of all about their experiences. So this is a lovely book, and another one that is, the cover is just so beautiful. So I really enjoyed this, and I reread it last year, I believe. And then a book that just, if you're a mom, this is the book for you. That is Life Among the Savages by Shirley Jackson. And this is about her life raising her kids. There's a sequel to this, Raising Demons, which I'm hoping to get to in the next month or 2, because this is laugh out loud funny. It's not at all like Shirley Jackson's novels. So if you're like, no, I don't like her creepy books, this is not that. This is lighthearted and tongue-in-cheek and so very funny. And I loved it. It was fantastic. One of my favorite nonfictions for sure. And then in terms of books of lists, I don't know. I just like books, not like, I've talked about 14,000 things to be happy about, with this literally just a list of things to be happy about, 14,000 of them. But books where each chapter is talking about something specific. So the first book I have here is Endangered Pleasures, and the subtitle is In Defense of Naps, Bacon, Martinis, Profanity, and Other Indulgences by Barbara Holland. And so it goes through all of these different categories think I've talked about this book before, but you know, you have things like coffee, weekends, travel, water, gambling, bad words, Christmas, being pregnant, growing up, books. So it's just little short chapters about the pleasures of all of those things in life. So I love things like this. And then I also have another very similar book, which is Personal Pleasures by Rose McCauley. And this is a similar kind of thing where it's just lots of different booksellers' catalogs, Christmas morning, doves in the chimney, hatching eggs, hot bath, reading, solitude, walking, writing, and anyway, on and on and on. So I love books like this. If you know other books that are similar to these, please let me know, because I'm always looking for things to add to my TBR like that. Oh my gosh, my books are gonna fall over. Moving on to the next category, we have personal questions. And the first question in that category is, were you or are you a teacher? And I think I mentioned this in my last video. No, I am not a teacher, though I probably should have been. I did want to be a teacher. I kind of got talked out of it. But if I could go back in time, it's probably the one thing that I would really want to change in my life is get my teaching credential and be an elementary school teacher. So I think I'd be good at it, and I think I would enjoy it, even though I know there's lots and lots of issues in teaching these days, but I think it would have given me more satisfaction than working in an office job. So that is that. And then the next question is, does your husband enjoy reading too? Yes, he does, very much so. He has, and actually maybe I'll do a scan of all of his bookshelves so you can see his books when I do the walkthrough of the other bookshelves in my house, because he has a ton of books too. But he really likes to read sci-fi and fantasy. Those are his go-to genres. So the things I don't like to read, he likes to read. The things I like to read, he doesn't like to read. You know, but somehow it works. And we do cross over a little bit. Like, we have read some of the same books, but it's not that often. But he does love to read, and he is also a writer. So when I first met him, he was writing a science fiction novel, and it was pretty good. And I'm not a sci-fi reader, so I hope someday he'll be able to get back to it. You know, unfortunately, life with a family is just the way it is, and it's very time consuming and not necessarily conducive to getting a lot of writing in. So maybe someday he'll get back to it. But yep, so he is a reader too. Our whole family is a reader. My son loves to read too. And then the last category are BookTube specific questions. And I just have one question from that for today. And that is, I would like to know what type of camera you use for recording your videos. They have such a bright quality about them. Some of that is probably because of the cherry yellow paint in your room, but I like the clarity of your camera as well. First of all, that is very kind of you to say. I'm so glad that you find my videos to be bright and cheery, because that was definitely my intention when I started filming them. But the confession is that I just use my iPhone. I have an iPhone 13, and that is what I film on. When I was thinking about starting this channel, I did a lot of research about how to start a YouTube channel and what equipment I would need. And pretty much everybody's advice was, don't spend any money to get started. Just use what you have. If you just have a phone, use that. If you've got a simple basic camera, use that. You don't need anything fancy. And I'd still say that is true. You don't need any fancy equipment. I do lighten the exposure on my videos, so that might help with the brightness. So I do adjust that on the iPhone. Like I said, up until this past month, I haven't spent any money on my YouTube channel because, you know, I was just starting it for fun. I didn't know if I was going to keep up with it or not. And I didn't know if anybody was even going to watch my videos. So I didn't want to spend any money on it. And I still haven't spent very much. I did upgrade to Canva Pro so that I could make my thumbnails just look a little bit better and use that for graphics and different things. It's just, you get a lot more out of the Canva app if you have the Pro version. So, but that's the only money I have spent on any kind of technology to make my videos or do anything on my channel. I mean, I've considered, like, I do think I want to get a tripod at some point, but like literally I have my camera on a stand stacked on a bunch of books on my son's piano bench in front of me. So I'm very low tech around here, but I am glad that at least the videos come out looking okay so that you can see the lovely book covers and all of that, but it's nothing fancy. I do have one more BookTube question. I thought I only had one for today, but I take that back. I have a second. So it's actually two parts. The first part is not about BookTube, but it's, well, sort of is. It says, first, can we get a sweeping view of the other bookcases in your house? And second, have you considered doing a video with your mom? I enjoy watching Miranda Mills and her mother when they do videos together. So yes, I will be doing a tour of the other bookcases in my house. I need to do a little tidying first, and then I will get that video filmed, hopefully in the not too distant future, and show you guys all around. And then secondly, yes, I have considered doing a video with my mom. One or two or a few of you have asked that in the past as well, because I've mentioned my mom a lot on this channel, and I think I've gotten her on board with it. But here's a question for all of you. What kind of video would you like to see the two of us do? Would you like us to answer your questions? So do like a sort of Q&A style video? Would you like us to do like a buddy read and then review a book? We could do it either where just she and I read a book and then we talk about it, or you know, I could put it out there so that anybody else could read the book, and we could do it sort of like a little mini book club read, and then my mom and I could discuss it. Or if you have any other kind of ideas, I don't know. But yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards doing like a Q&A type video. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. So that is it for the second part of my 2K Q&A video. Thank you all again for submitting such wonderful questions. And remember that there is still a little bit of time to submit a comment on the part 1 video to get an entry into my giveaway. You have until Sunday, July 28th to leave that comment and get an entry into the giveaway. I will have a link in the description box to that video, so you can click right through to there and then leave your comment. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, and definitely leave a comment here as well, because you know I'd love to talk all things bookish with you. And thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye.